I'm starting this right here at Race Management. Obviously on the dashboard page that you originally come to when you log in, there's a tabs list on the left-hand side of the screen. Yesterday we went over the profile and season management tabs. Today we'll look at race management. Yeah, and I'm glad it doesn't rain there, Jeff. I got your big list of duplicate drivers also, so I'll get to work on that this afternoon. But we'll start off on race management here. And I got 3 classes added to this event. I'm only going to use one of them. I'll use the Sport Compact class to go through everything. But I just want to start here on this setup tab. If we're running an event, I'm going to run my event for tomorrow. If we're running an event, this is the first screen you come to. And on a class-by-class basis, what you can do here is you can decide what you want to happen with the pill draw and what you decide you want to happen with transponder options. A lot of different options here for pill draw, from no pill draw to at check-in when you're selecting a driver, which is default, which is what I leave it at because it makes it a faster, easier process for me. There's also options for having it automatically draw after you find a driver or before you find a driver, all those kind of stuff. There's also manual entry options as well. So a couple of different things there. And then there's also a transponder options here, which is pretty straightforward. Do you use transponders? If yes, do you allow rentals? Do you have your own stock that people can rent from you or not? So no transponders or allow transponders. One of our partner plan features that I'll show you here is the required registration option. So I'll put in there for a required registration. So if you are going to force folks to register in order to compete, this is where you would be able to choose which registration you need them to fill out, whether it be a year-long registration or an event-specific registration or things like that. So we will go through those items as well. Next tab is MRP Live. This is how you connect to Westhold or to Orbitz. I will come back to that once we have lineups created, so that way we can push everything at once. So we'll jump into entries. Entries now. You're at the back gate. Drivers are showing up. This is how we're putting them in the entry list for that particular race night. There's a couple of different ways to find a driver. First being the My Competitors list on the left. That will basically just be a list of drivers who have raced with you before or who have registered with you in that class. So basically a way to find the folks who support you more often. Second way is to use the scan barcode option at the top of the screen. Here is a My Race Pass card. If you can see my camera, along with a barcode on the back, it says My Race Pass on the front. A lot of our sanctioning bodies will send this out with the license package. You have to have one of these in order to compete in the IMCA Super Nationals. That's why you see me sitting at the registration booth of the IMCA Super Nationals, passing these cards out to people who don't have them. Drivers also have a version of that in their app as well if they claim their own profile. But you can, if you got a barcode scanner, you can scan that card at the back gate, bypasses the search process, makes it efficient. Third way to find a driver is to search, and it's just a string of text. So you can just type in their name. And then regardless of how you find the driver, whether you click on the name on the left, scan their card, or use the search option, it'll bring up this screen. Every driver who's ever raced at any track that uses My Race Pass will already have a profile. So you shouldn't need to create new very darn often. They should exist for most people most of the time. If you use the search option and you type in the name and you're not finding what you need, there is a create new option right here. So you can create a new profile. But yeah, it exists right here. This is what comes up. So first off, what do I need in this screen in order to put the driver in the entry list? There's really only 4 things that we need. 1, pill draw number. Drew me a 38 because I had it set to auto draw. I can't edit that field. That's my pill draw number. Second thing is car number. Just what it sounds like, number on the car. The program will not allow duplicate car numbers on a per class basis. So if someone shows up after me and says I'm number 23, you'll have to put like an X or an initial or something like that behind them because you'll already have a 23 in the system. Third thing that comes up here is car owner. Car owner only comes up really in 2 circumstances. One, if you're doing owner points, which is really rare anymore. Not a lot of places do owner points. I actually just talked to a track that does today, but most people don't. So the only other time where car owner applies is if someone other than the driver is getting paid that night. To track payments correctly, And if you're going to use My Race Pass to print checks correctly, you have to have the correct owner information in there. You can use the search button, bring up a list of all owners that driver has ever had. If the person's not on the list, you can jump over to all owners and type in the owner information that you need. It will search us through our entire database of owners to find all of the owner information that you could possibly want, whoever that's going to be. If it's a brand new car owner, if it's somebody who doesn't have an owner profile, you can't add team. All you need is the team name and the type of car, and you're good. But for more often than not, those folks will already have an owner profile listed, and then you can mark it for payout goes to owner if that's the case. For all of these options, there's a default option as well. Fourth and final thing we need is transponder number. Type in the transponder number. Program won't allow duplicate transponder numbers per class, which seems straightforward, but should worth being said. Again, you can mark it as default, or if they're renting from you, you can mark the transponder rented box, and then there is a report that you can run at the end of the night that'll show you everyone who's rented a transponder from you. So that helps as well. And so really that's all we need in order to put somebody into the entry list. There are a couple of other options in the screen that I'll show you. The first one being lineup override. You can change that to starting at the back for heats or starting at the back for all races. So if you have a rookie driver or somebody shaking down a new car or whatever, for whatever reason they need to start at the back, you can mark lineup override for that person. There's really no reason to make anybody inactive, so you can leave that checkbox checked. The only time I've ever seen that used is if you're putting in entries like before race day and you don't want it to show publicly until race day. Then on race day, you can go in and edit and make them all active. Other than that, there's really no reason to use it. Payment amount, payment method, and contingency information you really only have turned on for partner plan profiles, and it's a pretty specific use case that I think only Lucas Oil Late Model Alert Series and USMTS use right now. So you probably won't see that. And then the last thing over here on the left, confirm memberships. Shows you what registrations they filled out, and if they filled out the registration that you need. And we're good. So I can add from there, and that driver's in the entry list. Remember, we turned on the license check option in the setup tab. So this driver is saying, we're saying right here that this driver has a license because they filled out the prerequisite registration. That's what that's showing you. You can edit all of the information that we just filled in by editing the entry. You can replace the competitor with somebody else if you put in the wrong person. You can assign them an MRP card if they don't have one. You can edit their name or hometown. You can do a lot of different things in that screen. So keep an eye on that. Put in the next driver. And here's where you're going to start to see some other information because this driver has not registered. So now at the top of the screen, this entrant does not have a confirmed membership. So if you're using the partner plan feature to track those licenses, make sure this is how you can verify that they have a license or not. And again, at the bottom of the screen, you can either allow them to enter without the membership or signify that they purchased a temporary license before you proceed. But I'm going to turn that license check off for now. And we'll just go through the rest of the registration without, or rest of the entries, excuse me, without it. So let me turn on speed entry, and I'll just put 10 cars into my entry list. Probably don't do that one. This one is going to give me an error because it's a duplicate number. So I'll put an H behind that one. And we'll call it good. And 10. And then you want to make sure that, again, they all have transponder numbers. And there we go. Perfect. That's basically putting an entry list in. A couple of other options here at the bottom of the screen. You can import from previous events. So if you've got, I don't know, a multi-day event where on night number 2, all of the same drivers that were there on night number 1 are going to show up. You can import from previous races, and you can, I guess, developers only can clean an entry list. So there we go. We'll get all of our entries in, and I'm pretty sure I just did that with the 410 Sprint Car class when I was supposed to do it with the Sport Compact class. That's okay. We can adjust. We can adjust. We are now running a sprint car race. Races tab information comes up next here. Races tab is where you're going to start setting your format for the night. So you can either copy from previous nights or you can add from up here, custom. I assume for a lot of IMCA type folks, and really I assume for a lot of folks from Crate Racing USA as well, you're going to have basically just heats and a feature. So I'll add that in there. I'll add 2 heat races and a feature for my 10 cars. Actually, I'll just do 1 heat so we can have 10 cars in a heat. You can put in your number of laps here. The one thing I will tell you is that if you're going to run a qualifying session, don't put a number of laps in that box. Whatever you have in that box will also transfer over to your live timing system, be it Orbitz or Westhold. And if you have a 2 in there, because most people think everybody gets 2 laps, they'll put a 2 laps in there. Well, that would just shut or checker flag the race in live timing after the first car. Well, that's not what you want. So if you're running qualifying, don't put laps in there. Everything else, you can put laps. You can put the number of cars that you want to go to tech. Other things in this screen, you can change the race names. So if you want to call it a last chance showdown instead of a B main, or a Conzi instead of a B main, or a time trials instead of qualifying, you can do that. You can add race sponsors here if you need to. Bob's Garage Heat 1, so on and so forth. And then the number one thing that probably gets missed more than anything is the transfers. You have to make sure that you set your transfers. So if you're running a B main, you can bring your top 5 from each heat to the A and then everyone else to a B. Because I'm just doing heats, I'll send them all to the A main, but you want to make sure you transfer your cars from one race to a next appropriately. If you're running passing points, then we'll change this option in the heat races to from group instead of per race. And we'll take the total number out of the heat races that we're bringing into the A main. So like 20 cars into the A and everyone else to a B, something like that. Right now, I'll just keep it at per race and we'll be good. And so I've got a heat race and a feature in there for my 10 cars. Next step will be lineups. Lineups is just what it sounds like. We're setting our lineups for each race type. When I go to calculate lineups, there are a lot of different lineup options. For those of you running an IMCA style event, there's going to be 2 different IMCA options. There's an IMCA pill draw and an IMCA point average. Pill draw, simple. Opening night or a draw redraw show, use pill draw. Point average, it says 2021. It only says that because that's when IMCA changed their lineup rules. Everything is good at that point. 2021 and beyond is what you're looking for. So if it's a point average race, we'll choose point average. If it's a draw redraw race or an opening night, we'll choose pill draw. Either way, it sets our heat race order, and our heat races are ready to go. Okay. So now, how do I get this information into live timing? I'm going to start with Westhold. I'll send my heat race to Westhold, and I'll send my feature over to Orbitz. So basically, we'll just use one race for one system and one race for another, just so it makes sense. But let me bring Westhold up, and then I'll bring up MRP Live. So here is Westhold, and then I will open up MRP Live. In the MRP Live tab of my race pass, there's the download application link. I would have you download and install MRP Live on the same machine that Westhold or Orbitz is running on. So we'll download it. It opens this. And what we're looking for here is an IP address, a port number, and a code. Well, the code comes out of the MRP Live tab. The code is the only thing that will change week to week. Put the new code in, and we're good. That's it. The IP address and port number will stay static 99% of the time. So you find the IP address here, and as long as you're using the same computer every week, this IP address won't change. So you're looking under network broadcast control. There's the IP address. Put in the IP address. Port number, same thing. It's 50,000. It's basically always 50,000. That pretty much never changes. 99% of the time it's 50,000. So we'll be good there, 50,000. So I've got IP, port, connection code, and we'll connect. Now that we're connected, you can do, there's a Get Lineups button here. That is how you get the information from my race pass into Race Manager. We'll press Get Lineups. And now when I come to the Assign tab in Race Manager, I put in my 410s. I calculated my heat for the 410. I also accidentally put in one competitor for the Sport Compact. So there's my Sport Compact competitor list. But all of the entries and all of the lineups that you have created will show in Race Manager in that screen, basically. One other thing that I'll show you here is under Tools, we have a lineup monitor option. If you've got a whiteboard or some kind of area where you write or staple lineups up for everybody all night long, you can use this lineup monitor to replace that. Basically, it's just a TV that sets wherever you need to. You put this screen on it. It auto refreshes every 30 or so seconds. So every lineup that you have created will show on this screen. As soon as that race goes checkered flag, it falls off of the screen. So I've got heat race number 1 on here. I've got my format for the wing sprint cars over here. The top all per heat to the A feature. There's one heat, there's one feature, all that kind of stuff. So you can use this to display those lineups if you need to. But I'll go ahead and I'll time my heat race the way you typically would, pre-start. And we'll let them all go in and start. And demo mode here, I think, requires 2 laps. So I will give them 2 laps of racing. 1 and 2. Checkered flag, stop. Nothing in Race Manager changes on how you would typically handle it. So there's my finishing order. Now when I come back to the results tab of my race pass, all I have to do is import that race. I can either import it by clicking on the link at the top of the screen or clicking the MRP Live button. Either way, import. And there's my finishing order directly, the direct feed from live timing. Here you can also mark your DNF, DNS, DQ, or black flag if you need to. If you're running a passing point show and you want that driver to get finishing points but not passing points for that race, like if they started at the back or something, you can mark NPP. But you get your DNF, DNS, DQ, or black flag in there the way it's supposed to be. And we'll just say that's how we're going to do it. Save is completed. It should move my DNS car to the bottom automatically. It did. We're good there. And we're good. So our heat race is done. Now I can set my lineups for the A feature. Again, for your IMCA tracks, there's the point average lineup. There's the opening night A feature lineup. Opening night is just a draw-redraw format. So if you're doing the redraw for the A main, use opening night. If you're using point average, there's the point average option. Either way, I'll use the point average option. I'll calculate. We're good. If you need to invert, I can invert as many as I want to here. So I'll invert 8. If I need to redraw, I can redraw as many as I want to here. So I can redraw. I'll redraw the same 8. And we will redraw them here. And there we go. There's my redraw order and save. We're good to go. All that stuff works. Now, the process of sending the information to orbits, I'll show you next here, which means that I need to disconnect MRP Live and choose orbits. And when I bring orbits up, if you're an orbits user, it's connecting is the same. We're going to the distribution tab. We're finding the IP address and the port number that's listed right here. Put that same IP address, the same port number into this screen, choose orbits, paste the correct connection code, and connect. So the process of connecting is exactly the same. You're just using a different area of the program. What do you mean it's not? Do I have to... I might have to restart MRP Live in order to use a different timing system for the same event. That might be what I have to do here. Or do I have to restart orbits? Never switch between orbits and race manager in the same race. That's where things get wonky. Although that doesn't ever actually come up for a real racetrack because everybody just uses one or the other. Let's reopen orbits. Now let's connect MRP Live. What am I doing wrong here? Oh, I'm opening. I'm opening the wrong version of orbits. That's what I'm doing wrong, Dakota. There we go. Now we're set. So now we press get lineups. Works the same way in orbits. I'll come to registration. And of course, I ran a race earlier today, so I've got all of this other information from the race that I already ran. Let me delete all that so you can see it from scratch. So now when I come to registration, instead of it automatically showing like it does in Westhold, you have to import it. So I'll import my groups first. Those are the classes. You'll only have to do that once per night once you get all the entries in. And then I can import the runs. Those are the races. So I will finish, and there we go. So I've got my A feature here in orbits, again, ready to be timed. purple and green, and then I will open the track simulator so we can have the world's finest fake racetrack running our fake race. While this is running, I will show you the live timing screen in the browser as well. There is a lap viewer up here where you can see live timing and scoring as the race is being run. This is really valuable, especially for an announcer. I would really encourage you to have your announcer listed as an administrator and have this live timing and scoring screen open for them. Obviously, if they're an administrator, they can open it themselves. Be able to see the running order, be able to see the best lap view. If you have any race that has the words practice or time trials or qualifying or hot laps or anything like that, it'll automatically default to the best lap view. It'll show you positions gained, so your plus minus for everybody. It'll show you the average lap time, which includes the average over the last 3 laps as well. So I've always used this going into a caution flag late on in the race. Yeah, this guy might have been winning for the, by however many seconds. But over the last 3 laps before the yellow, second place was a 10th and a half faster. Really, really good stuff there. And then there's a lap leaders view also, so you can see who's led however many laps you want to see. So that timing screen can be valuable for your announcer, especially just to bring more information to your broadcasts. So I'll get rid of that. I'll come back to orbits. First, I'll stop this. And then I'll come back to orbits. And I will checkered flag and stop the race as you normally would in your A feature. And now when I come back to my race pass, again, under results, I can click to import the result file that I need. We're good. You find out after the fact, after you've saved all this, hey, he was light at the scales. I can come back and I can DQ him and move him to the bottom. Whatever you need to do that way. You can share your results to social media with the share button down here. There's also a media format button where you can copy and paste the full feature results. I usually would do that into a news article if I'm writing a news article about that event. And actually in lineups as well. You can share your lineups social media that way as well. But that's basically a race night. Really want to emphasize getting the information and entries in properly is what's probably most important. But from there, all you're really doing is calculating your lineups, use get lineups to push them to your live timing system, import, run the race, bring the results back, calculate your next lineups, push them to the live timing, run the race, bring the results back. I mean, you do in orbits, you do the groups one time because those are your classes. If you make a change to your entry list, maybe you have to import the groups again, something like that. But if your entry list is correct, you do it one time. Then every time you calculate lineups for all your classes, you import the runs. You run the races, you calculate new lineups, you import the runs. And if you're doing it in Westhold, you don't have to import everything. You just have to press the Get Lineups button, and you're all set. And that basically takes you through a race night. So it's just repetitively doing the same process over and over again on race night. Last step then for a race night is the points and pay tab, points/pay. So I'll add a points and pay group. I name it point group 1 just because it has to have a name. The name doesn't mean anything. You can choose what schedule you want that point group to be a part of down here. So I have it at your favorite track schedule. You can apply your points to competitors or owners or both or whatever. And then you're picking your schemes. Now for an IMCA track, IMCA has their own schemes built into this for their various classes. So you can choose IMCA Modified. There's IMCA Stock Car, IMCA Sport Mod, IMCA Hobby Stock, Sport, all that kind of stuff. It's all in here. So I'll choose IMCA Modifieds. Whatever pay scheme you want to pick, choose the pay scheme you want to pick and add. By the way, you can find those schemes up in the settings area in the upper right, your points and pay schemes, where you can either add a custom scheme or you can add a global scheme. So again, global, there's one for all the IMCA classes, including the sprint cars. There's passing point schemes for USMTS, all that kind of stuff. There's the Crate Racing USA national points in here as well. Crate Racing USA, Thunder Bombers, national points are in there as well because that's a little bit different, all that kind of stuff. So all that stuff is in here. You can add as a global scheme. Then it's just a matter of creating your own pay schemes for whatever you need them to be so that they are accurate on race night. But then when I come back here, if I need to make an adjustment to the scheme, I can. This one has 0 in the A main because he was DQ'd, remember. That's why it's showing that. But if he's going to get a $100 bonus for being the hard charger, you can put in a $100 bonus there and save. What was that? I saw a question there. Any way to print a pay scheme? Let's see. Print a pay scheme. I don't know, Jeff. I've never tried to do that. Dakota, are you aware of a way to print a pay scheme?
At present, no.
Okay.
However, that might get added to a ticket that I already have out there for a different pay scheme thing, because that would make sense to go with it.
Okay. Yeah. That means that Dakota is going to put in a ticket to our development team to add that as a feature, because that's a really good idea. Never had anybody ask that before. That's a really good idea. But you put in your points, put in your pay. You can put in points or pay for every kind of race that you run. If you're using the IMCA scheme, then you don't have to worry about that side of it. But if you're doing payouts for features, for heat races, for qualifying, for B mains, for non-transfers, for show-up points, you can do whatever you want there. So then the last step of this is the Create Payments button. So if I choose Create Payments, it pushes all the information to the Payments tab in Season Management, as well as what we have that's called the 1099 report. So I'll start with this Payments tab in Season Management. You can decide how each driver is getting paid, or you can change them all at once by changing them all to cash and save. We're good to go there. You can edit the amount that they're getting paid if you need to add a custom amount, whatever else there. You can print checks from this screen, which I just had them all paid in cash. So that's not going to work. Choose check. Print checks from this screen. So if you need to, you put in basically the starting check number, the check layout, check the box, and what the order that the checks you want to print is, and create the checks, and it'll print the checks for you. You can print a report that I use for drivers signing for their pay out the payout window, whether that's check or cash or whatever. You still want them to sign for it. So the payee's name is listed on the left. If they're a car owner, the driver's name is listed in parentheses, what they were owed, what they were paid, and white space for them to sign here as well. Have them sign in the white space. You also, in this screen, can print mailing labels. If you've got their addresses on file, print mailing labels, stick them to your envelope and do that. How do you get their addresses on file? Well, if you watch yesterday's, we did season management view. Use season management to have them fill out a registration form so you can gather their addresses. And then if you want to use QuickBooks to track your financials, there is an option here to export all of this information into QuickBooks as well. So you can send it all to QuickBooks. And really, that's the last step for a race night. Pretty straightforward there. The other thing that I had on the list to show you is our 1099 report. So I'll open up reports and I will jump directly to the 1099 report. This will show you, as long as you press that Create Payments button on the bottom of your Points and Pay tab, press Create Payments, the information will go to the 1099 report, and it'll show you for all of the owners and the competitors how much money they made throughout the course of the season, as long as it was more than $600. Now, you can filter that to show all payments instead of just the ones that are more than $600. You can filter that by year as well to go to past seasons if needed for whatever reason. But you can audit this list also. It's a really good idea to come in here line by line and audit this to make sure it's correct. Make sure, if Gary Ashcroft was supposed to have a car owner, but you've got payments going to him, that's where you would get a hold of us. We could go and change it in the entry list to show the car owner. All of that information is there. You can also see the view at the top of the screen that shows you which events for which classes you did not create payments for. So if I look at this list, back on March 1st, I ran a 410 sprint car race, $11,000 in total purse, and I did not create payments. So instead of going back to that event on this screen, you can just create payments from here, and it'll be added to the list, all of those types of things. You can then export it as a PDF or into an Excel sheet, or print it if you need to as well. I typically export into Excel. I have a Help Center article that explains my 1099 process. I use a software called W2Mate. And so here's basically in a nutshell what my process is I export this list into Excel when it's done and ready. I then in Excel type all the social security numbers in next to the driver fields. So the social security number is in there, or tax ID number if that applies. And then when I go to W2 Mate, I import that Excel sheet, make sure the columns line up. They have a tool that allows you to do so. It's fairly simple. And then from that, when you import all that information in W2 Mate, you can actually print your 1099s off of that. You could print them, or you can export them as PDFs and then just email those PDFs to your tax office. So either way, 2 different ways to do it. It's very simple. I'm going to grab that link. Again, it's off our help center. So if I go to mrphelp.com and I type into the search 1099s, because it should show up with my 1099 report article, maybe. There we go. Working with 1099 forms in my race pass. I have about an 8-minute video on the topic. I have all the information kind of laid out here in terms of what to do. I really encourage you, if you're going to use the same process or want to change your process click that link, watch that video on your own time, and that'll explain my 1099 process. But that's our 1099 report as well. So, in review, we looked at race management. We looked at the entries, the lineups, the results, connecting to live timing, your points and pay, all that kind of stuff. We'll do the same thing tonight. Tomorrow, again, we'll look at website tools, ticketing tools, those types of things tomorrow. But that's what I had to show you here today.